Wanda Alcott produced a sizable set of keys from her purse and unlocked the door to the soundstage. If she was Wayne's daughter, it wasn't immediately noticeable. She had auburn hair, a pleasant face, and vivid green eyes. She was wearing loose brown pants, a scoop neck top, and a black sweater. Her earrings were silver cursive letter D's, the first letter of the trademark Disney logo. Finn had never seen a pair like them. Though her physical presence was anything but that of an 80-year-old man, she had the same self-assurance as her father. This, among other things, convinced Finn she might be telling the truth about being Wayne's daughter. It was actually the keys that sold him. Who else but a friend or relative of Wayne's could possess a ring of so many keys, one of which opened the door to Soundstage B. And even though his brain processed these qualities about her, making every effort to convince him of her legitimacy, he wasn't about to go through the door. He advised the other Kingdom Keepers to stay put.
One of us will go first. We don't all go at once.
But this is why we came here. Besides, it's far safer inside. Security could come along at any time.
Speaking of time, we've lost a bunch. The transportation center shuts down in just over an hour. Whatever we're supposed to be doing here, we'd better get to it.
It could be a trap.
She does look like him. Her chin and eyes are the same.
Wanda's face warmed as she worked the door's key off the ring and then returned the ring to her purse.
Finn, if you'll give the paper box to Philby, my work is done here.
She offered him the key to the soundstage.
Jessica isn't the only one who has vivid dreams. My father has had some powerful and unusual dreams for decades. Dreams that led him to unusual discoveries. He constructed this box the day before he went missing. He drew the images. He told me about Jessica's ability to see the future on the same day he gave me the box. Because of this, I know it means something. I showed it to her earlier this evening, and she said to show it to Philby. If I've accomplished that, then you can have the key and I can go if you like.
No, I think you should stay.
I agree.
Finn groaned.
What if it was your father? If we can help her, then we should.
We're already trying to help. That's why we're here.
Wayne is counting on you. On all of you. On all of us to save the parks. His concern is always for the parks first and his own safety second. The Overtakers want the parks to themselves. He has taken so many risks over the years.
We need to get inside. It's not safe out here. There are no security cameras inside. What they shoot inside is classified, like the DHI work. This should be a lot safer.
He's right. Security doesn't have keys to Soundstage B. The work done here being classified. Once inside, you'll be safe.
Finn tensed. He and the other DHIs were the product of the classified work she referred to.
Give me 5 minutes. If I don't come back out, take off.
I'm coming with you.
When Maybeck made up his mind, there was no use arguing.
Okay, let's go.
Finn opened the door and the two went inside. There was a second door, meant to block light and sound when cameras were rolling. Maybeck pushed this second door shut behind them, and together they entered the windowless, cavernous building. Maybeck found some light switches. It was an arena the size of a big airplane hangar. The ceiling had to be 50 feet high. Hundreds of theatrical lights hung suspended from a steel superstructure. A massive green screen lined the entire length of one wall. In front of the green screen was where Finn and the others, wearing motion sensors, had elaborately acted out all kinds of movements in order for the computers to program the holograms. Seeing the space took him back to the auditions and the weeks of work here that led up to his becoming a Disney host interactive. He had never known, then, none of them had, that Wayne had secretly planned to cross them over and solicit their help in defeating the Overtakers. It seemed like he was a different Finn now than the kid who had first auditioned here.
Not so different than when we were here.
Kind of weird, you know? Like we never left.
Yeah.
They searched the interior, including the 2 bathrooms, a small office, changing rooms, and a control room filled with electronics. Maybeck climbed up a ladder well into the catwalks and rigging above the soundstage. His voice echoed as he called out. They admitted the others.
We can make this work. The cameras, video, sound editing. It's all here. All we need is...
Don't say it.
An awkward silence hung in the air.
It's about the girls, isn't it? They've been grounded. So there's no way to get them out to help you here. But if they were like the 5 of you, well, that would change things.
Finn didn't like that she could know this. Charlene shot Finn a look that cautioned him not to try to stop her from talking.
It's that, yes. And also that they've been put on Park Security's watch list. There's no way to get them out of the foster home or into the parks.
But if they were DHIs...
If they could cross over along with us...
Finn bit back his tongue, furious that they were sharing so much with a complete stranger.
I understand, but please, whatever you do, don't forget the box. It must be important.
She addressed this to Philby.
I promised to take a look at it.
How did you get into the park? How did you get past security tonight, just now? Why didn't they stop you?
Finn, she's offering to help us.
It's alright. I'd expect no less from everything my father has told me about all of you. You haven't exactly made it easy. If you weren't careful, you wouldn't have made it this far.
I'm not accusing you of anything. You've misunderstood me. I'm just curious for my own reasons.
Because you need a way to get Amanda and Jessica into the soundstage undetected.
Finn withheld comment, but the surprise on his face gave him away.
But when can you possibly do this? The girls are grounded.
The woman who runs the foster home?
Miss Nash. Yes, I met her. Attends Mass every Friday night and every Sunday morning for 2 hours. Nearly 3, including driving back and forth.
But the other girls, all they'd have to do is report them and...
They won't report them, because the other girls won't be there. They've received complimentary sessions at my aunt's pottery shop to a program on Friday evenings and Sunday mornings provided to deserving intuitions to Orlando area. I'll be at the shop keeping them busy and monitoring them.
I'm impressed.
We've learned to work as a team. Maybeck talked his aunt into doing this. She doesn't know the full story, only that she's helping homeless girls.
She has a big heart.
But none of this means anything if we can't get onto the property without being seen. Same goes for Jess and Amanda.
If I remember right, my father gave you all employee ID cards.
Yeah, but it's a long way from either employee entrance to the soundstage. We can wear hats and glasses, but it's still a pretty big risk.
You won't need these hats and glasses. I can get you onto the properties. The girls too.
But how?
You'll need to use your employee passes to get backstage. Name a time and I'll meet you at a costume shop.
Finn hoped for more of an explanation. He didn't get much.
Make sure one of you has Maybeck's employee pass with you. If he's going to be at Crazy Glaze, he doesn't need it.
We can do that.
My father has made a few more tricks up his sleeves. It all comes down to trust, Finn. Leave it to me.
Finn felt the pressure of time running low, as on Friday evening he, Jess, Amanda, Willa, Charlene, and Philby entered through an employee gate on the backside of Disney's Hollywood Studios. Amanda used Maybeck's employee card to enter. Jess used Wayne's, provided to her by Wanda Alcott. The pressure arose from Mrs. Nash's schedule. She spent 2 hours at Mass. It took her a half an hour to reach the church in Friday traffic, and she remained at least 30 minutes after the service, praying for the welfare of her girls. That told her a minimum of 3 hours should be away from the Nash house. The same 3 hours the girls of the Nash house would be at Crazy Glaze. But it had taken Jess and Amanda 30 minutes to reach the studios, with another 30 set aside for their return. That left the Kingdom Keepers only 2 hours to accomplish what they'd come to do. Wanda Alcott's plan to get them inside the studios required some humiliation. The kids were shown into the costume storage and made up to dress in High School Musical outfits, either as basketball players or cheerleaders.
Do we really have to?
Cast members are used to seeing High School Musical kids appear because the streets shows. They won't think anything of it. The only thing we have to be careful of is
being in the same place at the same time as our DHIs, because our faces are the same and we might be recognized.
exactly.
They divided into the two groups, the DHI film characters and the HSM gang, and entered onto the streets of the studios. Wanda Alcott went ahead of both of them, both as a scout looking for the real DHIs, and to unlock the door to Soundstage B ahead of the kids' arrival. Nearing Soundstage B, only 50 yards away, Finn was approached by a round, red-faced kid who had a bully's mischievousness in his beady eyes. This was something Wanda Alcott had not considered: DHI fans. Finn had encountered enough of these kids at school to know what was coming. He whispered under his breath so that Jess and Charlene could hear.
Don't let him try to touch me. He'll either try to push me or punch me. He's expecting his hand to go right through.
How do we stop him?
She looked several years younger with her hair in braids and wearing a blue and white gingham jumper and red slippers.
I don't know. Step between us.
As expected, the boy delighted in seeing what he believed to be a hologram that would serve as a punching bag. He stepped up to Finn, raised his fists.
What you got, pal?
He took a swipe, his bunched knuckles coming straight for Finn's chin. Finn leaned back, the blow just missing. The boy staggered, off balance.
That wasn't a very nice thing to do.
Jess moved between the two. The boy's brow furrowed and he stopped, stone still, utterly taken aback.
Who are you?
He stepped toward Jess. She stepped back, still blocking Finn. The boy took a step toward her. She stood her ground.
This DHI is our guide. You'll have to get your own.
Jimmy!
An adult called from down the street. The boy's mother, Finn guessed.
I'll just borrow him for a minute.
Finn stepped back, but the boy was athletic. He anticipated Finn's move and actually moved closer to him. He swatted out, grabbing him. He expected Finn to be nothing but light. His face twisted into surprise as he caught Finn's basketball shorts.
What the?
Finn broke the contact and pushed the boy to the asphalt. The boy just sat there, dumbfounded.
You're no DHI.
Go.
Finn told the girls. They obeyed, heading away.
Jimmy?
Jimmy's mother's voice filled with concern. Finn worried the boy might tell on him.
I'm a Generation 3 DHI, Jimmy. More human than ever.
He reached out his hand. Finn helped the boy up. Jimmy stood slowly, awestruck at touching Finn.
But how? I thought... This is way cool.
He reached out, wearing a mask of incredulity, once again trying to touch Finn, but Finn moved away from the effort.
James Francis McConaughey, come here this minute.
I must catch up to my guests.
He turned and hurried off, reaching Soundstage B out of breath. Finn glanced around, trying to make sure no one was watching. There were too many people milling about for him to know. At last it came down to a decision. He turned the doorknob and opened the door. Inside, he found everyone waiting. Philby ran the controls. Jess and Amanda changed into skin-tight green leotards and tights that included booties, gloves, and full hoods that covered their heads and faces like ski masks. Patches of green plastic mesh had been sewn into the hoods to provide a way to see out and to breathe. Charlene attached the 35 wired sensors to each of the girls. The sensors would measure every kind of joint and muscle movement. Then the girls took turns on the green stage in front of the green background as Philby directed them to squat, stand, walk, lie down, run, crawl, dance, and jump. He thought up dozens of combinations of movements as Finn and Willa ran video cameras that captured and recorded from multiple angles every move the girls had made. The girls had some mistakes and had to repeat their movements, many of them several times. Philby worked a pair of computers, one recording the video, the other recording the digital output from each of the 35 sensors. The computers measured and recorded the similarities and differences between the way each of the girls moved compared to a database of how dozens of other people's moved, including all the Kingdom Keepers, each of whom had been part of the database nearly from its inception. Philby completed the recording with just 15 minutes to go until Jess and Amanda had to be headed back to the Nash house. He had a good deal of work yet to accomplish, work that had to be done in Soundstage B with its phenomenally powerful computers.
No way I can get this done in time, and we still have all the voice work to do.
Red alert!
Wanda Alcott issued a warning that meant someone, security, was heading toward the soundstage. The kids had practiced their roles for such an event. Willa stood poised, ready to kill the overhead lights. Philby put both computers into sleep mode. Finn and Charlene shut down the standalone lights and all the cameras. Jess and Amanda disconnected the main cables from their suits, the umbilical cords that fed the computers. Everyone was intent on hiding. All the kids scattered, having elected hiding places earlier. Jess in the green suits, it was hard to tell the girls apart and had difficulty unclipping the large plug at the end of the master cable. Amanda made it off the all-green stage, but Jess was still struggling with the oversized connector. There was no way she could leave the stage, so as long as the huge cable was connected to her suit. Finn, who'd hidden behind a wall of plywood panels on the casters, watched helplessly, desperately wanting to run out and help her. Jess lay flat down on the stage. The green suit of her and the cable blended perfectly with the green of the backdrop and the flooring. She all but disappeared. The lights went dark, and Finn heard Willa scamper to find a hiding place. Only seconds passed before the door swung open and the lights came on again.
I don't see what all the fuss is about. Do you see anything?
Well, the report was someone hearing something. We might as well look around.
Leaving the door open behind them, the two walked to the center of the soundstage. Only then did Finn, peering out, see that a light on one of the cameras was still glowing. His eyes darted between the camera and Jess, who had remained flat on the green deck, only a matter of yards from where the two men stood. One of the guards lit up a cigarette.
You can't smoke in here.
Correction, I can't smoke out here. No one's gonna see me smoking in here, unless I suppose you're gonna turn me in?
No.
Then what's the problem?
No problem.
Okay then.
The smoker remained where he was. The other guard grew restless and headed for the control room. Philby was somewhere in there.
You know what they use this place for?
Those, hologram kids.
DHIs.
The kids, yeah. You gotta admit, they look freaking real.
I know.
They give me the weebies, to tell the truth. I mean, if you want guides, why not just hire real kids?
It's Disney World, you moron. Don't knock it. It's a paycheck.
He entered the control room. Finn lost sight of him, concentrating instead on the smoker, who stood less than 20 feet from Jess, his back to her. She seized the opportunity, crawling on her stomach, across the green stage, the cable dragging behind her like a green snake. The man took another drag of his cigarette and slowly turned in Jess's direction as he hailed. If he looked down, he'd be looking right at her. Finn willed her not to move, not to so much as breathe. The ash from the man's cigarette broke loose and fell to the floor. His head dropped, his eyes following it. Finn couldn't take it in. He spotted a group of push pins stuck into the plywood. He withdrew it and threw it across the room. It clattered and rolled. The smoker turned away from Jess with a start. Finn backed up, deeper into the shadow.
Hey!
The other man reappeared from within the control room.
What?
Something. I don't know. Over there.
Where?
I don't know. I'm just saying I heard something.
So
what?
So, check it out, you doofus, and put out that cigarette before you burn the place down.
Finn stepped forward and sneaked another look. The smoker smudged out the burning cigarette against the sole of his shoe. As he did, Jess once again crawled toward the edge of the stage behind him. She reached the length of her cable and stopped, face down. The smoker headed in the direction of the sound of Finn's pin. He searched the area near the door where they had all come through. His partner joined him.
Well, I heard something too, but it wasn't much. How do you want to deal with it?
It's a non-event. I'll call it in.
He snagged a radio from his belt as the two men made for the door. His voice could be heard faintly reporting in as they shut the door. 5 minutes passed.
All clear.
We were probably talking too loudly. We can do this. We just can't be so loud about it.
We can't do it tonight. Look at the time.
To everyone's surprise, they'd lost nearly half an hour.
We're going to be late. That won't be pretty.
We can't be late. There's no telling what Miss Nash might do. That woman is... Well, let's say she's not normal.
We made a lot of progress on the imaging. But there's more to do. And don't forget the voice recording. We've got to Sunday if we're going to pull this off.
Then we can't be late.
But we already are. Unless anyone happens to have a helicopter handy.
Maybeck.
They all looked at him.
We've got to get Maybeck to delay the other girls. If they're late, and if Jess and Emmalee arrive at the same time...
Then Miss Nash won't know.
But the girls will. What about the other girls?
Jeannie's the only one who might put up a stink. The others could care less.
But Jeannie will definitely tell on us.
Then you'll have to bribe her.
How?
There must be something. Money?
No, not Jeannie. All she does is read books from the library. She couldn't care less about money.
I know. Her poster.
Amanda looked over to Jess. Jess looked at Finn, then at Amanda.
That could work.
What? Whatever it is, we've got to do it. We can't have her wrecking this.
The two girls giggled.
Are you sure?
What?
Jeannie's poster is of you, Finn. Your Magic Kingdom DHI poster.
Me?
What if we could promise her she can meet you?
That hardly qualifies as a bribe. More like a penalty.
Thanks a lot.
Well?
If it means you're getting back safely tonight, then absolutely.
He glanced over at Amanda. Something felt wrong about agreeing to do this. Janine Puckett refused to lie about Jess and Amanda's whereabouts, but her compromised position was to agree not to tell on them. If Mrs. Nash didn't ask, she agreed to keep her mouth shut, so as long as she got to meet the boy who her favorite DHI had been modeled after. Mrs. Nash didn't ask. Having returned to an empty house, she had been on the phone trying to find all the girls as they climbed the front steps. Amanda and Jess were among the group, having timed their arrival perfectly. Not so much as an eyebrow raised. Sunday's foray into Hollywood studios went the same as the first session. The Kingdom Keepers met Jess and Amanda backstage, courtesy of Wanda Alcott. Everyone donned costumes and using employee ID cards gained access. Philby completed the task of translating as many of the girls' movements and spoken phrases as possible into computer code. He assembled the code and then dumped it into a 100 gigabyte portable hard drive, about the size of a paperback book. The creation of the DHIs were hindered by the pressure of time, while each of the kids had spent over a month into the soundstage modeling for the DHIs. Jess and Amanda had spent a grand total of 4 hours. It meant that without a doubt there would be gaps in their motion and speech, like a DVD or CD skipping. They were certain to go digital at times. What that would mean for the human girls asleep in Mrs. Nash's house or the appearance and performance of their DHI inside the parks, no one knew. Philby had a number of new concerns, and he shared them with Finn as the two, in the guise of their DHIs, sneaked from in front of Cinderella's castle toward a cast member. Only entrance to the Utilidor, the underground tunnel system that connected attractions below the Magic Kingdom. There was no way yet for Philby to select who crossed over and who didn't. The only control they had over their transitioning was the black fob that also returned them. Finn had discovered that pulling out the fob's small battery prevented their crossing over. Without the small watch battery in place, the kids got a good night's sleep. With the battery installed, they crossed over, all of them. There was no way yet just to send one or two of them. It was something Philby had hoped to remedy, perhaps even that same night. But as it was, they'd left the DHIs of Willa, Maybeck, and Charlene in Walt's apartment at the top of Cinderella's castle. Awaiting their return, Maybeck had the all-important fob. They would hide it in the apartment as they crossed back. If the two boys weren't back by midnight, Maybeck was to use the fob to cross all three back, stranding Philby and Finn and delivering their human selves into the syndrome. The DHI servers might shut down at midnight, and that was part of the fix the Imagineers had believed would solve the Kingdom Keeper's problem once and for all. This midnight curfew was another one of Philby's intended targets. When he and Finn reached the computer server farm, 30 feet beneath the surface, if he could defeat the curfew installed in the software, they could stay in the parks longer as DHIs. But he just had.
It's complicated.
That's an understatement.
The two boys moved quickly between bushes, keeping low and working on their way toward the ice cream shop on Main Street. The park came alive at night with all the Disney characters. It was difficult, if not impossible, to identify overtakers, unless a particular character was seen doing something suspicious. He and Philby stuck out. They needed to make it underground as quickly as possible. They paused, well hidden, allowing a golf cart to make it down Main Street and turn into Tomorrowland.
At this point, servers project DHIs into 4 different parks: Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, Epcot, and Hollywood Studios. Our crossed over DHIs always land in the Magic Kingdom. That's okay, but time consuming if we want to be in Epcot looking for Wayne. What I have to do is figure out why the Magic Kingdom is the default landing and change it, at least for the time being, to Epcot. That's something Wayne set up, so I can That's some. I'm gonna reread from. Okay, there. What I have to do is figure out why the Magic Kingdom is the default landing and change it, at least for the time being, to Epcot. That's something Wayne set up, so hopefully I can distinguish the instruction within the existing code. The problem being that if it was easy to find out, then the guys who scrubbed the code to fix the KK problem should have found it in the first place.
Unless they did find it, and Wayne re-entered it recently. That would explain why we suddenly started crossing over again. Good point. And no one's been told to clean the code since, because we haven't been spotted.
Another reason not to be spotted now.
How long to install the girls?
Around 20 minutes. Once they're installed here, they should self-propagate and then install into the other servers. They're all linked by fiber optics. They share resources, which makes the refresh faster, and keeps the feeder hot if one of the servers fails. I'll use 20 minutes to try to change the landing default to Epcot.
And you're going to show me how to read the Epcot maintenance stuff?
Piece of cake. I can get that started the minute the download begins.
Philby hoped that Epcot maintenance reports might reveal something of the Epcot infrastructure, might show or suggest to the boys where to find the various utility rooms, places where Wayne could be locked up. Philby had once been led by Wayne into a graphically powerful representation of the Magic Kingdom's schematics. If such a thing still existed, and there was no reason to think it didn't, it would likely be accessible from the Utilidor's computer room. Finn didn't trust Philby's optimism. When it came to computers, Philby seemed to think all things were possible, whereas his own experience had often proved much different. Half the time, Finn couldn't get his printer's scanners to work, much less crack the code of Disney's maintenance server.
Let's go.
The golf cart had passed and disappeared. They ran for the boardwalk that fronted the ice cream shop, turned left, and found the sign that read cast members only. They hesitated, alert for the sound of anyone coming. Finn used hand signals to motion for Philby to follow him. They slipped through the short turn in the fence that led them backstage, where they saw permanent office trailers and employee parking, empty at this hour. To their right was a small set of stairs leading to an elevator. The door besides the elevator led to a set of descending stairs where a sign was posted high on the door. Welcome to the Utilidor. Watch for vehicles and have a magical day. Finn felt Philby place his hand on his right shoulder. If they failed at this, in the morning their parents would find their sons lying in their beds, and impossible to wake. It would scare their families to death. No matter what happened, no matter what, they could not allow that to happen.